It's time to get your checking account to zero with free checking from PenFed. That's zero ATM fees, zero balance requirements, and zero time spent waiting for your paycheck to direct deposit because you can receive it up to 2 days early. Open your account with just $25 and see how big zero can be. Apply online today at PenFed.org/free checking. Early direct deposit eligibility may vary between pay periods and timing of payers' funding. To receive any advertised product, you must become a member of PenFed, insured by NCUA.
PenFed's got great rates for everyone.
Monday, so all the freaking like big podcasts that post first thing Monday are already out. You end up at the top of people's feeds, but I don't know if that ends up making any difference or not.
Yeah, I've thought about specific days. I've thought about times, and then ultimately just, I don't know, I've switched it up. I'm going to have it, Monday first thing, and then Tuesday and Wednesday, and now it's just like, whatever. I tend to make it where now when I'm doing 2 a week, Tuesdays is for like out of state, and then Thursdays is for Alaskans, but I don't know. Yeah, who knows? And you can't even really tell like how yours compares to anything else, because it's really a lot more about like likes and oh my gosh, not likes, but or comments, like people who comment on the podcast and rate the podcast. Like that stuff is a much better indicator. So I was looking at like what numbers are good numbers, like the average podcast, or you're like in the top 50% if over 100 people download the episode on the first day that it or in the first 24 hours. And I think, well,
yeah,
only 100, like that puts you in the top 50%.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
Of course, and it's like what range are we looking at? Because if that's all podcasts, I mean, it makes sense. I heard something like that. Like if you can get to, it's like 100,000 downloads, like then you're like way above average for podcasts that are out there.
Yeah.
But podcasts are tricky. It's tricky. Like podcast metrics are super tricky, and they're not very straightforward. And you have your RSS feed, and it goes across so many platforms that it's just super hard to track. And I don't even know if I can trust the numbers I'm getting, except for what's on individual platforms. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah. It's kind of a mess. It's kind of cool though. But then you look at a whole bunch of podcasts. If you just search through some like Alaska podcasts, there are some that haven't had any episodes since 2019 or 2020.
Oh, yeah.
So like, are those still counting in it? Like that person has had 0 downloads for the last 2 years. So is that part of the average? So if you have that 0 or a bunch of zeros in there, that's really going to distort the average. So
yeah, no, it would be interesting to see the algorithm or like the metric, like everything that is taken into account in that. You would think that they would discount stuff that like just hasn't had any postings in a year or more, or there would be some way they'd categorize that, because there's got to be millions of podcasts that just don't get updated anymore.
Yeah. There's just not a single number, because each different platform has its numbers, and there's not a big brother that's tabulating all of them, which maybe that's good. Maybe there's not like like Google owns all platforms or something like that. It's probably a good thing that there's confusion. But I already pressed record, so I'll do a late introduction here. I got Tyler Freel on here. We're talking some podcast, man. Thanks for being back on here.
Yeah, no problem, man. Thanks for having me.
You're the host of Tundra Talk and recently minted staff writer for Outdoor Life. Congratulations on the change of title.
Thanks, man. Yeah, who would have ever thought that? That it still blows my mind. But that's about the last job I thought I would ever land on. And hopefully, it's my long-term career.
Well,
I'm gonna give it my best shot.
You've been a contributor for a while, right?
Yeah, a little over 10 years.
Yeah. If you're not in the writing gig, contributor and staff writers sound just about the same, but there is a pretty big difference when it comes to like being officially employed versus someone who writes for.
Yes, salary and insurance.
Yeah, benefits. That kind of job versus career too. I was talking with that with my journalism kids today. I said, there's a big difference between a job and a career, and career is what you want.
Yeah. Yeah, and like I don't know, every career looks a little different. You just and I don't know. I really lucked into. I mean, just circumstances worked out for me to, I'm blessed to be in the position I'm in. And I mean, I can't, like, have asked me over the years, oh, how do you start, writing for places like this? And I have advice I can give sometimes, but a lot of it is just like I just got lucky.
Yeah. Well, and I think too, like living in Fairbanks and riding the way that you do, there's so many people who come up to Alaska, and I've mentioned this. It seems like every other podcast, but people from down south come up to Alaska and write their story. But that really authentic story is something that people will definitely read. And so, because you got in, and it makes a lot of sense to have someone who has lived in Alaska for a while and is writing about Alaska to have that really authentic experience and perspective that can fill in a lot of the gaps, rather than people who come up and they have a great experience, and it's great to listen to those stories, but there's just a lot of stuff that's missing from the year-round experience.
Yeah, and that's one of the, I guess it's not really luck that I choose to live here still, but it's advantage. It plays in my favor that I do still live here, and it's certainly just a major like content rich place. I mean, it's where everyone dreams of going, and I mean more along the lines of my podcast. That's one of the things that really like motivated me to start my podcast is after I discovered what podcasts were and started figuring out that there were hunting ones. I'm like, man, there's just nothing there. I didn't feel like there was really much out there that represented like us and our way of life and people who just do it's just what they do rather than come on a trip every once in a while.
Yeah. There's a different perspective, and it was cool to see. I want to get into your sheep. I don't want to get too distracted, because
Yeah.
that's an awesome story. But the caribou one was great too. Like the Hall Road archery caribou hunt is on so many people's radar, but then seeing you do it, and then listening to the podcast about hunting the Hall Road when it's winter by most area standards, it's just a different opportunity and such a different feel. Um, do you feel that there's I don't know, not to not be grateful for the lower 48ers that come up here and spend all the money to make things happen, and give the state money. Um, but is there a different feel to these hunts that aren't really done during that prime visitation time?
Well, I mean, as far as the Hall Road, my experience up there is pretty limited. Like I've seen it like right, August, September. I've been up there, and it was cool to. And there's up a place like that, and it's one reason. That's one of the few places that I don't feel as bad about, like quote unquote blowing spots or whatever. I still try to be vague enough, but it's no secret where I'm at, and everyone kind of knows about it. But it is cool, even though there are still going to be people up there that doing that kind of after hours type stuff when it's and when there's no non-residents up there, and it's just going to be less pressure overall than probably with the busier times of year. I think it's cool, and I like that winter time frame. Early winter, if the bugs aren't as bad as they can be up there other times of year. So yeah, I don't know. It was pretty cool experience though.
Yeah. I hate to sound like the local person who scapegoats the non-locals for all ethical problems and whatnot, because locals can be just as bad, and it probably even worse because they should probably know better. But it is kind of
Yeah.
nice when, there's a different level of, I don't know, I guess stress when we're not all like fighting over the scraps of the same resource, and doing that 40-mile herd hunt in March of last year. Like there was only locals because it was only open to locals, and so
Yeah.
people were so much more helpful. And I'm sure it's way different when everybody is out there. And I'm sure the Hall Road is different or is the same. And like two guys that you met, Alaskans, you ended up having on the podcast. It sounded like you guys like struck up a friendship, which doesn't always happen when people are hunting in the same area.
Yeah, no, and there's a lot of times there are going to be cool people out there, and I feel like if you're a reasonable, friendly person, and you treat other people well and are willing to adjust your hunting to account for other people, especially people that are already kind of there in a spot, then it's only gonna help you. It's not gonna hurt you, and over as much as sometimes we like to talk, I don't know, it sounds good maybe or attractive to just go be a dick to people, and because you get mad, it's not ever going to do anybody good to do that in the field. Even if people are doing stuff that isn't really the best stuff to be doing, whether it's slightly illegal stuff or just doing dumb stuff. If you can just kind of do your thing, at worst case scenario, it's just kind of an inconvenience to you. Best case, you can make friends, you can improve the quality of your hunt, and you can help other people. And yeah, those guys, we were both like super cordial, and it worked out really well. And they're both really cool guys, and we kind of we're coordinated and made it clear we neither one of us really wanted to step on the other's toes. And yeah, ended up making a couple friends out of it, and everybody had a good time.
Yeah, that's cool. I really don't understand the logic of some people when they say, well, this person did it to me. Well, like if someone starts something and then you do it back to them, okay, you have this pissing contest with that person. But if you then feel that you were wronged by someone else, then take it out on someone else, like you are now every bit as bad as the person that you're upset at. And it just doesn't make any sense. And it doesn't help things whatsoever. Yeah.
And the more time, and it can be a spectrum. There's some people that it's just, there's some people you may run across that you really don't want to, like, it's better just to live and let live. And, they may try to one up you and do stuff to you. And just, there's that end. And then most people are reasonable. Most people aren't going to do stuff, but all you're doing by like focusing your energy on what other people are doing, if they're irritating you, is just you're impeding your own hunt. You're like ruining the quality of your experience. So like on this caribou hunt, there was guys not really chasing them in trucks, but like their strategy was to use their trucks to let the caribou start crossing the road and then zoom up on either side and get out. And saw some observed some walkie-talkies and some shooting from standing on the road at caribou sprinting across the road. But, which, the stuff's illegal and some people want to jump all over reporting it. I'm just kind of more of a, it is what it is. I'm just going to go worry about my own hunt and adapt. And if people want to do dumb stuff, it's going to catch up to them eventually. So.
Yeah. There have been a couple of times where someone will do something and like the thought in my head is like, I hope that I see you on the side of the road and you have a flat tire and it's raining and I just want to drive by. And then I'm thinking that does not make any sort of sense or make any sort of point. That's the wrong reaction. But it's that sort of, I want to show you, but just stupid. And it's not worth it because then you're right down there with them. But yeah, at some point it will catch up. And same thing with the good. You do the right stuff and it'll end up paying off.
After years of fine print contracts and getting ripped off by big wireless providers, if we've learned anything, it's that there's always a catch. So when I first heard that Mint Mobile offers premium wireless starting at just $15 a month, I thought, what's the catch? But after talking to them and using their service, it all made sense. There isn't one. Mint Mobile's secret sauce is that they're the first company to sell wireless service online only. They cut out the cost of retail stores and pass those sweet savings directly to you. For anyone who hates their phone bill, Mint Mobile offers premium wireless for just $15 a month. I was hesitant about having to get a new phone and a new phone number, but with Mint, you can use your own phone with any Mint Mobile plan and keep your same phone and your same phone number along with all of your existing contacts. Mint Mobile gives you the best rate whether you're buying for one or for a family, and at Mint, families start at 2 lines. All plans come with unlimited talk and text plus high-speed data delivered on the nation's largest 5G network. Switch to Mint Mobile and get premium wireless service starting at just $15 a month. To get your new wireless plan for just $15 a month and to get the plan shipped to your door for free, go to mintmobile.com/waypoint. That is mintmobile.com/waypoint. Cut your wireless bill to $15 a month at mintmobile.com/waypoint.
So I want to talk about sheep, of course. And it was episode 119 was your sheep recap. And so if anybody wants to go listen to that, like send them to your show, Tundra Talk, episode 119 for the full sheep recap. But I thought going in, it was just going to be about how terrible it was that you guys went 3 days without food. But I was nervously laughing at how awful it would have been because you guys don't usually fly out.
No, we haven't flown out in years.
And then you decide to fly out, and then you get corked by pot-smoking saddle sitters.
Yeah.
So, well, first of all, like, why did you go to the new spot? Was it like curiosity or pressure or just location rotation or what?
No, it was just a spot that we'd talked about going to hunt for years, and I don't know, just never really got around to it. And I wasn't thinking I was going to get to go at all, but for like a 4-day weekend this year, and it lined out that I had 8 days available, and it lined out just there was an air service opening right at the time we would be able to go. So it's like, well, it's kind of a very, very last minute, like a couple days ahead of time, snap decision that we're like, man, we can get in there, so let's do it.
Do you do any sort of location rotation? I know it's different with. Well, I'm assuming it's different with sheep because you might not have the same level of populations. Do you kind of go to the same spot knowing that it's just going to get replenished, or do you have to every 2 years go back to a different spot and then hit some other spots for sheep?
We've hunted some of the same areas. There's not really much of a rhyme or reason to it. A lot of times, there's like one spot that we go to that we usually like to take a couple of years off to forget how bad it was. And how it's kind of a stressful spot to get into. You're just beating on your equipment, and there's a lot of obstacles. So, well, it just, I don't know. There's not really much rhyme or reason. We both me and my hunting partner Frank kind of have an itch for different stuff, and there's been, we've both drawn different tags over the years, and so that kind of affects what we're doing and scheduling wise, and so it seems like it's been kind of a hectic few years where sometimes we just go to this spot because we know it, and that's what we have time to plan for. And then this year, we just jumped on this other spot that we've been talking about for a long time, but it just fell into place. So you might be disappointed to hear that there's a tremendous lack of strategy.
Well, is that a result of being so successful? Because what Frank was trying to get 10 years in a row with the sheep and had got to 8. So has the success kind of impacted your approach where, hey, we've had success, let's go try this new spot because it's not sheep number 2?
Yeah, certainly a little bit. It's not, we haven't been in a position where we're like searching for the place where we can get sheep, because we pretty much always, we have always got, been able to find legal sheep and nice, decent sheep that we're willing to punch our tag on. So yeah, I'd say that's probably affected it, as opposed to being, newer at the game and just trying to find a spot where we can find legal ones.
Yeah.
Because that can, especially, this past couple of years with, some populations have been taking a hit. And so some areas, like, it's gotten tough, and the weather this year, you almost can't, I don't know, it's almost like a year that doesn't count as far as like hunting. If you're hunting a new area and you didn't see much, I mean, the weather was so bad that at least during the time frame we were in there, that you couldn't really it's not like it's a fair shot at it, in my opinion.
Yeah. And you're limited. Have you ever gone twice in a year, or has it just been this is the trip and this is what we get?
I've gone, the most I ever went was, I think, 3 times. I spent like 28 days or 26
Oh,
days hunting one year, but that was because Frank drew a Delta tag. And so I went in, and that ended up taking 10 days with him. And then I went into a spot over like a 4-day weekend, which it was just enough time literally to get all the way back in, hunt for half a day, which ended up being all foggy, and then walk all the way back out. But and then we went back for another, I think we were gone that last one. I don't know how long. I think we were gone for almost another 10 days. It ended up adding up to be like 26 days or something like that I was out during sheep season.
and did you end up getting one?
Yeah.
Okay. I was gonna say,
Yeah.
ooh, 0 for 28. That would have been, well, 0 for 3, I guess, but 28 days, that's a lot of. There has to
Yeah,
be
pretty
something different with that. Down here with blacktail, it's we get 4 tags.
Yeah.
So essentially kind of have the 2 seasons where you want to get at least one in the alpine, at least one in the rut. So the
Mhm.
2 different circumstances, but some years you have that level of desperation where there's not as much stuff in the freezer. And a couple years ago, I had this spot all scouted out. I was super excited about it. I'd seen some bucks with my bow, and I had drawn, but the thing didn't come clear. So that's how the season ended. Set up some game cameras, and then they shut down the road and then logged it.
Oh man.
And it was about a mile hike into where I had my game cams, but with the new logging road, it was like 100 yards. And I pulled the game camera, and it was just like buck, 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 and then just ended. And that was probably when they like started to cut that area. And I thought, oh man,
Yeah.
I put so much time into this spot. It was going to be a honey hole, and then just not. And it forced me to go to a different spot, and I've had some success. But man, if you lose your honey hole, or you think you have one,
Yeah.
and then inevitably that's going to happen. Is that do sheep honey holes exist, or is it more a matter of you get good enough at what to look for, and then you can just find them?
Well, I think it's a little bit of both. There definitely are areas that there's areas we hunt that consistently hold sheep, and there may not be a lot of sheep around those, like in surrounding areas. But I'd say, yeah, there are spots that, you stumble into them or find them, there's there's areas that'll consistently have rams every year, pretty much, barring some other weird circumstances. And yeah, I mean, I definitely get nervous. I've been nervous for years about some spots getting discovered or blown out by the right or wrong person. But there's only, yeah, I don't worry about it as much anymore, because I don't know, the older I get, the more I realize that worrying about it isn't going to do anything. So
Oh,
I just try not to think about it. I just try to do my best. And this part of like why I want to hunt new spots too is, if I can build my portfolio of spots that, I know can be productive, and I like seeing new countries. So it's a little bit of both, a little bit of trying to build the number of spots I know where I can kind of fall back on or go to if something happens in one spot. But yeah.
yeah, I like that portfolio of spots there. That's good. Have you always kind of been like that, where you can just, hey, there's stuff we can control, some things we can't, or has that been a learned thing?
Oh, it's still a learning thing.
And people have got to listen to that episode when you and Frank are talking about those people who are right, like just totally ruining the program, and you could sense that you guys were attempting to be as cordial and helpful as possible, but they just weren't really having that.
Yeah, I mean, it was. I don't want it to sound like the way it might sound. I don't know, even know what I would say, but like it was like we're thinking on 2 different planes, and sometimes you do that. Like Franken said, like maybe go looking because we're like, yeah, sure, move on, go buy us, go check out other country, which to us means like we won't see you again.
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
know, it does, maybe to other people that might, oh, I'm gonna like look through this saddle, and that's like moving into new country. And the guys are kind of during the whole like pity party thing, or they're like, oh, I expected there to be more sheep here. And I'm like, well, this is not like a super sheep dense area to begin with. I was like, I don't know what your expectation was coming into this, but it's not being met.
Yeah. I would definitely like to get up there and like have a look at some of these mountains first before I commit to the full thing. Because I think there's just you can hunt things so much more confidently if you have some sort of idea. But if you just like e-scout or read stuff online, then you can go in and all of a sudden you got to make a massive, massive change. But at the same time, it could be expensive to kind of go up there, do a different hunt, and like a halfway scout, just get a look, because then you might be living with the intimidation factor of, oh man, I looked at these mountains and they look even worse than I thought. And so for 11 months, you're thinking about how daunting it's going to be. And you can kind of get in your own head.
They always look worse in person. They are. And that doesn't go away every time. Yeah. Every time we drive down through the mountains or go do stuff, it's just like, man, looks painful. But you end up developing, if you stick at it long enough, you end up developing just, kind of a put your head down and take it one step at a time type of mentality. You don't have to be, no one has to be Cam Haynes or anything like that. You just like take it one step at a time, and you'll eventually get there if you don't quit.
Yeah. You mentioned in there, it was like, was it hard in a new way? This hunt was. Where's the line between like hard in a new way where you still stay confident versus this is actually hard in a way that's kind of stupid, and maybe we should dial back a little bit? How do you know if you're approaching that line?
Man, I don't know. I'm pretty dumb. I end up doing the stupider stuff sometimes. So I don't know if I'd be the best qualified person to answer that question, but yeah, I don't know. And I kind of liked the challenge of it. It was, in some ways, it was it was definitely the most challenging sheep country I've hunted. Like I've hunted bigger mountains and nastier terrain and stuff, but man, it was just rough. It was a slug. And yeah, the circumstances a lot of times play into that too. Like, weather didn't help us out that much. We're getting attacked by murder hornets, and
yeah,
so it was, but there's always factors that could play into my mentality. But it was pretty rough. And there's, I've been pretty spoiled for the most part. I don't deal with a lot of brush and alders and stuff on areas where I sheep hunt, and this area was pretty thick. There was a lot of beating the brush and crawling through alders and stuff.
Yeah, it's kind of a weird thing, because you have to, if you never challenge yourself, you never do something, then you're just going to stay the same person. So as you challenge yourself a little bit more, if you look back at the amount of growth or what you now constitute or define as difficult, it was probably would seem stupid to like the 10-year ago version of yourself. But yeah, there's some people who do things that just are clearly seem absurd.
There's people I look at and I'm like, man, that is nuts. Why would you do that?
Yeah, I don't. It seems like there's more. I don't know anything except for what I've read in the papers. So you don't want to judge people based on the situation they happen to get themselves into. But it seems like this year has been there have been more instances of sheep hunters needing to be rescued.
Yeah. Like a couple incidents in the Chugach this late season, and then the guy that they assumed he drowned crossing the creek. I didn't really know him, but I met him before. And it's just, it seems that it's a little bit more real when people you met and people you know and stuff like, happens to them. And it's a relatively, small community, network of people up here, that pretty much anything happens to anybody, you may not know them, but you know somebody who knows them.
Yeah.
And it's, there's no rhyme or reason sometimes to why stuff like that happens. There's obviously things you can do to be safer, but almost every year I eat shit. And like this year, I fell flat on my face walking, like going downhill, like a pretty steep hill, but I was fine. But if that had happened at some other point in time, it could have been, the results could have been a lot different. And maybe I'm just more careful but you never know what's going to happen. All you can do is do your best, I guess.
Yeah. Yeah, we see that down here, in Southeast. Like there are so many jobs that have to do with the water, and a lot of their recreation is on the water, and so people going out when the weather is bad versus not as bad, and it's not a matter necessarily of things being worse than normal. It could just be some weird thing. Maybe it was a high tide and it picked up a log, and there's driftwood in a wave that you can't see or something like that, and it's someone who is not ridiculous, doesn't make crazy risks, but there's just things happen, and man, it's so sad and tragic. But you don't want to judge people for being idiots based on things that happen, because stuff does happen.
Oh yeah, big time.
So as that's going on, like, were you you're a couple days in, did you have like a calming, reassuring feeling that at some point you'd be picked up and it wouldn't be a big deal? I know Frank had his idea of shooting and retrieving a duck. Which is funny. I don't want to give too much away. I want people to listen to the podcast, but
we were getting ready to shoot anything that came. He had a pile of firewood ready to make a spit and get whatever we could kill. On, I don't know. I mean, I knew we'd get out eventually. I knew we weren't going to starve to death. There was plenty, obviously bears poking by the tent every day, and it wasn't. I don't know. It was just stressful, and being, knowing that you're overdue, and you start thinking I'd be better off if I could just put everything out of my mind or didn't have communication. I don't know what would be worse. In some ways it's worse to know like everything that you're late for and putting other people in jams and stuff like that when there's literally nothing you can do but sit there and wait.
Yeah, I definitely don't want to have harrowing stories. I would rather things just kind of go as planned, but if you're outside enough, eventually something's going to happen, and it's going to be a little bit hairy.
Yeah, I'm hoping we cashed in all those vouchers for several years.
Yeah.
With that, because it was there's always a good side to it, and we got to see and start learning how to hunt different country, and it's experience we definitely won't forget. But overall, as far as like a quality sheep hunt goes, it was pretty bummed. We were hurting, but there's always positives to take from it.
Yeah, I think you kind of have to have that. Otherwise, you might get scared off from doing things. You have a really bad experience and you think that's it. But no, if you've had good times and bad times, you kind of adjust and keep going with it.
Yeah, for sure.
So you went. You had moose too, mixed in there,
Yep.
right? It was
Yep.
It was sheep, moose, caribou, or caribou moose. What? That was the moose hunt?
Oh, it was great. That was after we brought plenty of food after because we were back for like a couple weeks, and then maybe a little more, maybe like just like 2.5, 3 weeks, but just busy. It's been such a insanely busy summer and fall. Like I felt, which is frustrating for me because I felt like everything I've done this fall, all these hunts have been like half-assed and like just throw all your stuff together at the last minute type of thing. And I like plenty of time to just, I don't know, think about and anticipate that like a hunting trip, and have plenty of time to get all my stuff together. The past few years that really has not happened that much, but this year was especially busy. I mean, literally didn't have time to do any podcasts it was from before sheep hunting until after moose hunting, and maybe it even been after that caribou hunt. I can't remember, but it was pretty nuts. And so it was nice to get out, and because we were late 3 days sheep hunting, um, I had to come back like midway through our moose hunt. Like after 5 days, I was going to have to come back and watch our kids for 3 days. And then, because my wife had to work, and then I was going to go back in and maybe hunt for a day, and then we'd have to pull moose camp. So, I was a little stressed about that, but it was nice just to get out there and, bring the whole kit caboodle and good food and comfortable camp, like improved our comfort level in moose camp a little bit more than last year. And in the winter, we'd hauled out a big tripod stand to get us over the brush so we could see better and kind of fine tune the spot we wanted to call from. Cause our moose hunting out there is just all calling. It's, it's not really, there are some moose that move. It's kind of a travel way for them, but you don't really see that many moose just wandering through. You're pretty much exclusively calling. You can't really get out and cover ground or glass and turn them up like that. So, yeah, we went out and set that thing up and got plenty of firewood cut, and then went back into hunt, and it was just a good time. Pretty relaxing, just a nice like daily routine. And the weather was a lot better than in August. It was cold, but nice and clear, not too nasty. Just a like high fun to work ratio.
As someone from Southeast who's never hunted moose, is like I hear about floats for moose versus kind of picking a spot and then having that. I mean, it almost sounds downright luxurious compared to like the Alpine program anywhere. But is it kind of regional, or is a moose camp much more effective than trying to do a float thing?
Man, I think it all depends on the area and how you want to hunt, and what you have to work with. Some people they'll have a camp and then spots where they can get up in glass and find bulls. They can call or glass up bulls and get close to them and work them that way. And in some ways, like that gives you more flexibility. But like where we're at, it's pretty much all swamp. You can't really get around that well. You can't get up to see anything. There's obviously some pretty good moose numbers in there, but some people would not view it as like an ideal moose hunting spot. Whereas, float hunting, you have the ability to cover more country, and some areas that may be the most effective way. It's like just kind of a pie chart of the way you like what's your priorities as far as how you want to hunt, where you want to hunt, and what resources you have to work with too.
Yeah. It's definitely appealing to do a float hunt. It just sounds nice to be able to, you're in the raft and you're just meandering and you're covering ground, but it's nice and easy. You have all your stuff with you. But then whenever you decide to camp, like you're taking camp out and then you are packing it up for as many times as you leave, or as you're moving spots. But then also, if you do get back into a spot and you make it your moose camp, what if it's a spot that you don't like? Now you're fully committing to this spot. It seems like a pretty tough thing, which is, I don't know, I'm just guessing here, but the people who have their moose camp that they've had for 10, 15, 20 years, and, 4 people go, and the only way that you get into this moose camp is if someone can't make it. But
yeah, no, it's tricky, and like there's like risk involved in any strategy. It could wind up being a terrible experience. You could go on a float hunt and have to drag, one of every 3 miles. You dragging your raft, or there's just different circumstances. There's, different pros and cons for each option. If you're wanting to go pick a single moose camp and you're hauling everything out to hunt there, you run the risk of being anchored into that spot. Like our spot, it works good for me and my buddy, because we're, it's we're just like, all right, well, this year was like, I had first pick because last year Frank had first pick, first rider refusal moose. And it's not like, because I've had people ask, oh, is there room for another guy? Well, not really, because you're just getting in line. It's not a spot where you can spread out, or in some of the, other species, or, some of the lower 48 stuff where you can just spread out and everybody can hunt effectively, like where our moose camp, like you're hunting the same moose from the same spot. So it's just a matter of where you're at in the queue.
Yeah. I bet people offer you a lot of, or give you a lot of invites for hunts, or ask to come along. How do you deal with some of that? Because there has to be, oh, dude, Tyler, I'll take you out, man. I got a great spot to go to. Like, how do you gauge that with your celebrity?
Oh gosh, I don't know. I'm just a pretty normal guy, but I or abnormal, depending on how you look at it. But
Alaska normal.
Alaskan normal. That's fair. But I get more solicitations than invites.
Oh yeah.
But I don't know, and most of the time I just don't. In recent years, I've just got time for what I've got time for, and kind of on the media angle, like being a writer, I up to this point I've only done two. There's a thing called media hunts or writer hunts, where companies they'll usually work together with a couple other companies and bring writers on, like bring 1, 2, 3, 4, whatever writers on hunts to on a hunting trip to use equipment and I mean that it's like, I don't know, how would you put it? It's kind of an advertising motivation for the companies to bring media on these hunts, and also for the riders, especially riders who aren't as lucky to live in places like we live. It's a ways to get stories and content and use different stuff. And there, I don't think there's anything wrong with them. I've only got to do two so far, one in Alberta and one in South Africa. They were both a lot of fun. And I did get invited to go. I go on elk hunting in New Mexico next month in November. And then immediately after that, going aoudad hunting in South Texas.
Nice.
And so it should be fun. I don't know. I want to do and experience as much stuff as I can. I also it's important to me to keep in mind, like, the stuff can be really cool experiences, but they kind of are what they are. And I never want to give up doing my own hunting on my own, if that makes sense. And as far as like handling, people asking to come, I mean, it just kind of is what it is. I try to be honest with people, but not, a lot of times, like, we kind of got our own program, and it's no like slight on anybody, and sometimes it works out to bring people along, and sometimes it doesn't. We're just people too.
Yeah. That's one of the things I like about the writing thing, is you have an opportunity to kind of, the hunt happens, and it's kind of, sometimes as it's happening, you might be kind of writing it in your head a little bit, and then you get back, you get a chance to kind of take a breath and go. I think it'd be difficult if you're like in the moment and it's being filmed, because it's not right now and then later, like it's all happening right now. The content that's going to be published is happening right now. I think I'd be like awkward or exposed as a lunatic if I was being filmed on a hunt.
That's always the risk.
Yeah.
This caribou hunt was, we did film that, and it's going to be, it's for just an outdoor live video. Like, I've done a bunch of them in the past, but it's going to be way better than those, because they actually, we brought a camera guy with us, and that was kind of cool. Like, I'm used to the videos I've done, most of them anyway. There's been a couple exceptions, but most of them having to like self-film and all this stuff. And it's just, that part's stressful, because it's hard. It's extremely difficult to hunt and get quality footage. And we actually, the past couple of years, aside from stuff that's easy, I haven't really filmed that much stuff, just because I got sick of dealing with it. I just want to hunt. And the caribou hunt was a lot of fun, because the The guy was great, and I mean, he did a good job, had a good attitude, had never like done anything like that. But like I didn't have to worry about him. I just kind of did my thing and enjoyed the experience, and the video should end up being pretty cool. But yeah, there's always the risk of I hate seeing myself on video, but there's always that risk when you bring another medium into play.
Yeah. I used to be, and this might be indicative of kind of where the video content is going, but I used to be in that must be nice crowd, where you have these sponsored people who are going out to these whatever private ranches and sitting in or whatever. And I just thought, man, that's not hunting. These guys are whatever. But now it's like, oh man, that's just a different way to tell the story. And making little clips or videos or stuff like that, that's pretty fun. But again, that might be just because it's a lot more accessible, and like any person with a cell phone can put little clips together, and it's a lot more fun to watch that content than some of those, I guess, the 80s and 90s, the sponsored hunts at these really expensive lodges, because that was pretty much the only thing that was out there.
Oh,
and
yeah.
that was the main voice, and that was the main driver, I guess, of it. So it's I'm much more appreciative of all avenues of content, and the video thing is pretty sweet, and I really like the people do a good job and get some cool shots and cool angles, and it's just fun to watch.
Oh yeah, and people, like being more accessible to people, you just get to see a lot more of people's stories and kind of vicariously experience, what they're seeing, rather than just the few guys who are doing like this a carefully constructed type of thing, if that makes sense. You just get to see, like, I don't know, I appreciate genuine stuff, and most people do, I think. I'd rather have like more genuine type stuff than ultra dressed up, reenacted pose stuff. And that, like, this recent trip, that was one thing that I was pleasantly surprised about, is there's no like, all right, walk by that rock again or do this or that. And like the guy was stuck with us, and he knew shots that he wanted to get. He just got them without like interrupting the process or the experience or anything. So it ended up, it's not all bad.
Yeah. There's a subtle semantic difference between like filming a hunt versus making a show. And I think in the presentation of it, I think I like content that is people who have filmed hunts or have had someone film a hunt, rather than the show necessarily. Even if it ends up being an episode of a show, there's just that difference. But
yeah, doing the show sounds stressful to me. Like you got so much riding on, keeping sponsors happy and all that stuff. And frankly, like outdoor TV, I mean, I don't watch it, but I haven't in years. But it's not. And the more I've like been around this industry, it's like a loss of innocence almost. Like some of the stuff some of the ways you thought about this stuff, or you thought things aren't the way that you thought they were, type of sentiment. Like I didn't know, like, all these outdoor TV shows. You grew up as a kid thinking, oh, that'd be so cool, and I just get paid to go hunt on TV and all this stuff. It's like, well, most those TV shows don't make much money, and if they do, it takes a long time. And frankly, like, they're not getting paid by the network for their show; they're paying to air their show.
Yeah,
and then they have to make up all the difference. It's kind of ass backwards from how you would think it would be. And then they have to make up the difference from sponsors and all this stuff. And it just, I don't know.
Yeah,
it's just not my cup of tea.
Yeah, that was part of the reason why I changed my tune a little bit from the must be nice type to just appreciating how hard someone has to work to get to that point. I mean, you've got to work so hard, plus get some sort of break. It's not that you're just chosen, or there's no shortcut. There has to be hard work, and then hopefully you get lucky, and then that's how things work out.
Yeah, and being stuff that, I don't know, I tend to think that, just try to enjoy it as long as, and make sure, do work as hard as I can to make it work, because I've been blessed with the opportunity. But if it makes sense, I wouldn't ever set out to try and like force something I love to be my job, because that would just you know, you get that. At least I see that as being where that's where, you know, people quote unquote sell out, and you get some of the stuff that's like not genuine, and just all the gripes like that we and everybody have about the fakeness and all this stuff. It's I don't know. That's how I would see just trying to force something I love to be into, like making me money or being a career. You know, it's like having to, because there's, you know, like you said, you can't cut corners. You've got to work hard at it, but it also just stuff has to line up for it to work. It's not like you can force it into existence.
Yeah. Success necessitates some sort of change. You're not going to be the person you were when you started, when you were writing for free and then got sold a couple. And then if it ends up being your job, it's going to change things. It's that band example. You know, the band was little known and then they became well known, and you call them sellouts. Well, they just got successful. Like, they kept working at it and they ended up being good. So of course there's going to be some sort of change, but it is difficult to maintain that same sort of voice or same sort of work ethic. But I don't know about work ethic. Maybe you keep the same work ethic, but whatever. Yeah, things do change. And I do like writing as being able to do it on your own terms. I think is the biggest thing. Be able to articulate yourself the way you want to, and not have to feel pressured to write a certain thing for a certain way. So, and I think that's probably one of the things that's attractive about your writing and your articles is you say it how you feel, and you're not trying to make it sound good for anything else, which I think that's one of the reasons why I really like your stuff, and probably why Outdoor Life wants to have you on.
No, thanks, man.
So as far as other projects, are you looking to expand some of the writing stuff, or is it going to be keep doing what you're doing? What's going to happen with that?
Pretty much just a lot more of what I'm doing, you know, now that I'm on staff and not just freelance, you know, like I'm not only expected to turn out stuff a lot more frequently, but you know, now I have the time, you know, because that's allowed my wife to you know, quit her full-time job, and so like now I have the time, because before it was always a balance, you know. I needed, you know, working freelance, you don't get the benefits and insurance for your family and everything, so you know, it's like the time it would take to make enough money to have this be the main source of income, or like the overwhelmingly, you know, major primary income. It's like a balance between what time you have to devote to it, and allow time for, you know, like my wife to work, which it's been working fine for us. But this was definitely like a nice thing, because, you know, I've got to spend a ton of time with my kids, because when she was working full time, I just, you know, I'm Mr. Mom, and it's been fantastic. But me going full time has allows me a lot more time to write. So, you know, just basically a lot more of what I've been doing. Stories, you know, they have me write, I feel strongly about some things, so they have me write opinion stuff, and you know, looking a lot of gear stuff and gun reviews, pretty much the whole gamut of content, you know. Like there's a lot of different styles of and categories of pieces that Outdoor Life does. And now that and then going all digital, basically dropping print, it sucks in some ways, but that's pretty much just in the you know, the sentimentality of liking to hold a paper magazine. But, you know, when you look at the metrics, that hasn't paid the bills for a while.
Yeah.
And as much as everyone likes to hold a paper magazine in their hand, not that many people buy them.
Yeah,
so
exactly.
You know, them switching to all digital, like, just refocus the entire like organization's efforts on doing it correctly, and doing it like being a strong voice in that area. So like, well, I mean, we're going pretty full tilt, and it's nice. Like it's nice having just a list of stuff that I am having a hard time keeping up with writing and cranking out. Like, I love it. It's awesome. So if that answers that question,
Yeah.
that's what I'll be up to is banging on my keyboard a lot more.
Yeah. So you did a lot of opinion stuff, issue stuff, reviews, things like that. Are you going to get into more like writing recaps of hunts and some of that feature creative writing, or is it going to stay just more opinions, more of
Yeah,
them more
no,
frequently?
it definitely more of the story stuff too, which I don't know, the past few years it's kind of depended on, and for years like everything was split between print and digital, and I was starting to get more print like story work, but I also I've done a ton of like digital story stuff over the years, so that's important to me as well, and there will be that, kind of recaps and lessons and stuff like that, as well. So yeah, kind of the full gamut. It's always kind of like, sometimes it seems like flavor of the week. I get in the habit of doing something, or especially freelancing, when it's like, I can get work, but I only have time to do so much. And, sometimes I'll get sucked into doing, more opinion pieces than story pieces and whatnot. So you just kind of, I've just kind of gone with the flow, but yes, it should see more of everything. I mean, I'm been turning in like, at least a story or two a day. So
Yeah, shoot, man, with the amount of stuff that you got going on up there, that's pretty nice.
yeah, yeah. And that's one of my favorite things. That's probably my favorite thing to write is story recap type stuff.
Yeah. It's just recapping the life. Like this is part of the life, which is so nice that it's just embedded in like every weekend or every season. Like this is what you're doing anyway. It's not like a separate thing where you're looking forward to the
Yeah.
one hunt they're going to do, and just you've used the word blessed quite a bit, and it's just the right word to be able to use or to live in a spot where you can do everything that you want weekly, or if it's in season, there's something in season, and be able to live so close to that is just it's such an
Yeah.
amazing opportunity.
Yeah, it sure is, man.
So coming up on an hour here, and I'm out front of the Ketchikan Airport like a hacker with my laptop out and my headset on. So
Don't need someone. Yeah, just let me know if someone starts tapping on the window with
yeah,
a mag light.
yeah. I think the Ketchikan TSA is, and it's not connected to town, so it's it's a little bit different, but pretty casual here. But waiting for the wife to come up here, and she'll be up here for good now, which is pretty sweet.
Nice.
But what is, as far as like a closer or pitch the episode so people can listen to the sheep recap and the caribou recap and the moose recap? Where can people find you, read your
Yeah,
stuff, and all
that's
that?
just Tundra Talk podcast, pretty much on all the major podcast apps, and on the website if you just want to listen on a computer, just tundratalkak.com. And I think, yeah, like 118 was caribou, 119 was sheep, and then I'll probably post the moose one tomorrow, because we did I have it recorded, and I'll probably post that one tomorrow. Yeah, basically just recapping our whole fall. So
Nice. And then, did you decide to make some more hoodies?
I will. Yeah, I haven't got them ordered yet. I'm like scrambling, trying to come up with another design.
Mm.
And like I feel like I need a fresh design, and then order some of the older ones as well when I get around to that point. But yeah,
Nice.
so I should have some more in this winter.
Excellent.
I figure I basically kept reordering them until the orders dwindled down, and it took a while to finish them out. And then, so hopefully this has been a good cooling off period, and everyone's ready to get some more.
Nice. Yeah, just in time for like the winter tends to be the shopping, planning, gear buying season.
Yeah, it sure does.
Cool. Well, thanks, man. Appreciate you being on here. Great stories. Congratulations again on the promotion, and we'll be in touch.
Yeah, thanks, Jeff.
Well, take care.
All right, see ya.